You are now entering a dangerous liberty zone where God-given natural rights are held sacred and exercised. This is your warning. Tyranny, fascism, and censorship will not be tolerated. Ideas will be exchanged freely. Rigorous debate and open discourse is encouraged. If you are weak and your beliefs are fragile, you should leave now. Prepare yourself. We are now live on the Dangerous Liberty Podcast. All right, folks. Well, we are back. It's been a whole week off. I may have forgotten how to do this, but we'll see how we do tonight. Hope everybody out there is having a great time, and welcome to the Dangerous Liberty Podcast, where we know that safety at the expense of liberty is slavery. We got a great show for you tonight. I see a bunch of questions over there already. We're going to cover it all, folks. We're going to catch you up on what we've been doing over the last week. We've been hard at work, and we got a lot of cool things in the works. Been working on many different projects, and yeah, it's been busy, but I have missed making content and getting on here. And there's been a lot of things that I don't know, needed some opposition, I guess, because there's a lot more nonsense being put out every single day. Like, we can't come up with enough theories because all the salacious and sensational theories are what's making money for everybody, and they just can't come up with enough. It doesn't matter how crazy they are, how ridiculous they are. One of the other things I'm going to talk about tonight is I genuinely believe that there is a Psyop taking place and is capitalizing on this event and exploiting this event and people's interest in this, as well as people's distrust in our government, as well as mainstream media and everything else that's going on. And one of the big, I don't know, points of tonight is I think we absolutely, there is a need, a critical need for citizen journalism in period. And it's because we've lost all faith, and rightfully so, in mainstream media. We no longer have news networks that are bringing us news. It is controlled information. It's engineered information, and it's designed to make you think a certain way and believe certain things. And the other thing they do is they omit a lot of stuff, right? Well, we're going to continue to stay on this, as well as many other topics in the future. And we're going to commit to participating in this citizen journalist experience and experiments, right? At the same time, the only way that citizen journalism replaces the mainstream media is if they do all the things that used to make them legitimate, and they avoid doing the things where we've lost faith in them. And that is, number one, telling the truth, being objective, having some sort of ethics, being honest every single time with the viewers. And if they get something wrong, come back and make it right. I mean, it's really not that hard. It's really a really simple formula for success to gain people's trust, because that's the product, right? The integrity is the product that they're selling. And when you lose that, you lose everything. And the problem here that we have, what I'm seeing day in and day out, is we have these citizen journalists that are supposed to be trying to replace the mainstream media because of lack of trust, and they're out fake newsing the fake news. As a matter of fact, it's become tabloid nonsense all over again. There is no ethics, there is no morals, there is no principles guiding them. They find whatever they possibly can, they post it up, they get clicks, and then the next day they're posting something completely different that is contrary to what they were posting the day before, but it doesn't matter. They don't correct the record or anything else. They jump from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next, and people follow them along because, look, this is an important topic. And I do think this is a pivotal moment in American history, without a doubt. I mean, this is, this is going to be in the history books. And I think people are going to look back and talk about whether it's 9/11 and Charlie Kirk's assassination and the time that they tried to kill Donald Trump twice. Like, where were you when that took place? And I think we're going to look back 20 years from now and we're going to remember that. And we're going to be talking about it to our kids and talk about how discourse fell apart in our political system. And we were no longer talking to our fellow Americans that are Democrats or liberals or Republicans or conservatives or libertarians or anything else in between. So that's kind of going to be the overarching topic of tonight. And I'm going to cover a bunch. But before I do that, we do have a special guest. And I want to bring him on. But real quick before I do that, I do want to talk about another thing. Folks, I've actually hired a producer, and we're going to be doing some things and trying to take this show to the next level. And I know there's a lot of people out there. I can't tell you how much I appreciate all the kind comments. There was lots of people sending me emails over the week because I was gone. Man, that was really cool. That means a lot to me. But what we're going to do is we're going to commit to all those ethics that I talked about, all those principles. We're going to tell the truth, even when it's unpopular. And that's what we're going to do. So one of the things that we did to try to make sure that we can fund this and make this a success is we've actually put out memberships, right? So now if you want to join as a member, a monthly member, or whatever else, we'll be doing some other things that try to bring you value as a viewer, to raise revenue, and to make this something that is sustainable. So if that's something you want to do, you want to support us that way, we're definitely going to do that. But without too much further ado, I want to go ahead and bring on our special guest. We got Bronson on here. Bronson, welcome to the show, and thanks for coming on, man. I really appreciate it.
Hey, Gary, thanks for having me, man. I can see the comments. I can see them right now. Feds, they're the feds. They're in on it. It's coming.
That's great. You know what? And we're going to talk about some of those accusations as well tonight. I want to get hard and heavy into that. I think that is just a clear red flag for a bunch of nonsense, but we'll get into that. So it's either going to be feds, Nazis, and Israeli collaborators. I love when I get called all three within like the same comment section too. That's always a lot of fun. So but anyways, Bronson, tell everybody a little bit about yourself. I came across you. I think somebody tagged me. You had covered some of our content, and you were a smart, articulate guy. You weren't there to push a bunch of nonsense or to try to exaggerate things or anything like that. And I thought it'd be great to have you on tonight.
You want me to tell you my life story or something?
No, I mean, tell us a little bit about, number one, you got a YouTube channel. So tell everybody about your YouTube channel.
I do, but I had a YouTube channel just basically as a hobby. I like to play video games, started out doing that just to play around. And then I started paying attention to the conspiracies that started to get spread towards Charlie Kirk. And I've always been kind of conspiratorial minded.
Sure.
And the theories these people were coming up with, to me, immediately just looked insane. Like, it's so far reaching, especially with, granted, it's not a lot of evidence, but with just a little bit amount of evidence that the authorities have released to the public, I think it paints a pretty clear picture of what's going on for the most part. There's definitely some holes.
Sure.
I'll admit that. But overall, I think they're just way too far reaching, and we'll get into that.
Yeah. No, 100%. So what made you, was it you just kind of being fed up with some of that made you wanted to start covering some of this content?
Yes, 100%.
Interesting. Yep. So what I want to talk about tonight, folks, and this is going to be a term that we're going to turn into a segment, and it's CogSec, right? Cognitive security. And essentially what it is your inability or ability to make sure that you have some cognitive security, and that you aren't, when you look at something serious, to make sure that you aren't, I don't know. We all have our own biases, right? And all of us, subconsciously and consciously, we are attracted to our bias confirmation. We're all susceptible to it. We've all shared memes or stories that we find out later aren't true. And we're like, we got that political opponent or whatever thing that that you believe in, right? When you find something that confirms that bias, you push it forward. And I hope that one of the things that we do in this channel is make people challenge themselves, create a little bit of mental discipline, and to be able to objectively assess each situation on its own. One of the common comments that I see down in the comment section, I said common comments down in the comment section, I see a lot is oh, well, JFK this, so Charlie Kirk this. That's not logical. And if that's the way that you think, then you need to do a CogSec check, right? We need to sit there and say, no, we need to assess this situation on its own, because without a doubt, there are government conspiracies. I am adversarial to the United States government because They have lost faith and credibility in a lot of the things they do. That doesn't mean that they lie every single time. And we need to be able to objectively assess and be able to discern, because what that leaves us open to, if we reject evidence and information outright every single time, but just on the face that it's the government, right? Like, it's the government, I'm immediately going to reject that. I'm going to go over here and I'm going to chase this shiny thing over here. That doesn't make sense. That's not logical. That's not smart. That's how you get tricked. Because the fact is that we have a lot of people pushing a lot of lies. And I will say, just like Bronson rightly brought up, the government currently is leaving information gaps. There's no doubt about it. But mostly of what we've gotten from the FBI, which they're no longer even, they've given up jurisdiction of this case, and it's been given all to the Utah authorities, as far as I was told today. Somebody can confirm that or deny that for me. I'm not 100% sure on that, but it really doesn't matter. The point is we don't want to be lied to. We don't want to be tricked. We don't want to be manipulated. And what I can tell you for sure, and I'm going to go down the list of all the things that we've been lied to by people on the internet, and I think it's more than just people. I think it's the majority of people just wanting clicks, money, fame, all the things that come with lots of views. I think that's the majority of it. But I do think for sure that there are political adversaries and there are foreign government adversaries that are capitalizing on this, and I think they are causing division, and they're further undermining our faith and trust in government and U.S. institutions. Look, I want to give the government all the amount of faith and trust that it deserves, and I want to address when they lie to us and they trick us. But also, I don't want to be manipulated by another either political or foreign adversary to believe something that isn't true, that further causes more chaos, division, and things like that in this country. I mean, that's just a fact. So I want to go through some of these things that we know, I think generally are going to be accepted to be false, that have come out since the beginning of this. And folks, I will definitely be we're going to prioritize the super chats. Bronson and I are going to talk a little bit here, and then we will be taking questions and reading your comments. And then I will try to get to as many of the live chats as possible. One of the first things that came out right away that we later found out to be not true. And as a matter of fact, I remember still addressing this about 2 weeks after Charlie was killed. And that was that Tyler Robinson was a right winger. That was one of the first pieces of misinformation that came out on this. Everybody was saying, well, he was a conservative, this or that. I think that is, we understand that that's not true. All right. He had fallen deep into leftist ideology. He was into this trans Tifa thing going on, and there was a lot going on with that. So I think we can immediately identify that. And I think that this is where a lot of this started, where a lot of people on the left were saying, hey, he's a right winger and he didn't kill Charlie Kirk and all this other stuff. And a lot of things started from there. The other thing that's been spread by some very prominent folks in media is Tyler Robinson was never at UVU. Okay, both of his parents identified him through surveillance footage at UVU. It was his parents that identified him, as well as other people as well. Now, I know there are going to be people that say the FBI made that up, because that's also in the charging documents, by the way. Now, the problem with that statement is if somehow we get his parents on the stand, and they're going to be, right? They're going to be witnesses in this. And they're being asked by the prosecution, hey, did you identify what you thought was your son on that footage? And if they say no, well, that's a real problem. Then it undermines the faith and credibility of the rest of everything else, this entire case. I don't think that's going to happen, and there's no clear evidence that right now that we have. Now, when we get to the trial, there's a couple of things going on with trial number one. I'll just tell you right now, if they do not televise that trial, it's going to be an issue. You talk about complete disruption and faith in the entire government. I think it is it's going to be, hopefully that judge is wise enough to understand the impacts of what this trial is going to be. What's your thoughts on that, Brunson?
Especially when it comes to, like you were talking about earlier, with the feds and them not being transparent enough, or them not putting out enough information, right? We've already seen his defense team bring a motion to the court to try to get cameras banned using things that Kash Patel has stated publicly, things that Pam Bondi has stated publicly, things that even President Trump has stated publicly, to basically claim prejudice against Tyler Robinson. So if they had put out even more information, I feel like that they just can't do that. The defense would, if they were to put out, for instance, like showing that security cam footage showing him actually taking the shot, and any more damning evidence, right? I feel like the defense team would have an easy argument to prove that they're causing prejudice, which would basically prevent him from having a free trial, or a fair trial with an impartial jury.
Yeah, I mean, there's already people out there right now that have already determined, based on what we have, which isn't that much, you know, whether or not he's guilty or innocent. I mean, we need to have a fair trial. I will say that we haven't seen all the evidence. Well, there's a certain amount of expectation I have of what they're going to show. They're going to be able to show all the evidence on the rooftop. They're going to be able to show this person taking a shot. They're going to be able to show more identifying videos and pictures throughout UVU. There's all of that. So I think, you know, if they called me up today and, you know, asked me to be a jury, I will say that I don't know for a fact that Tyler Robinson was or was not there. I think there's not, we definitely don't have access to enough information to convict the guy outright. I think the evidence is pretty solid so far, and it's about where we'd expect to be with a murder trial like this. One thing that I want to go ahead, people are saying that my mic is cutting out. Is it clear back there?
It's probably the Wi-Fi. It's not, there's nothing wrong with the mic or anything.
Gotcha. Folks, I apologize if my audio is cutting out. I'm going to close some of these other tabs and see if that's an issue with it. We're in West Virginia. It's raining right now, and I got satellite Wi-Fi. So hopefully, it's definitely not my CPU.
Just want to touch on something real quick. As far as evidence of him being on campus or not, that door cam footage that Gray got, the much clearer version, I guess in that security cam footage.
I don't know. I'll have to check that out. Hey, James, hey, do me a favor. Run upstairs and make sure that nobody's using Wi-Fi up there, please.
Yes, sir.
All right. Again, folks, we'll try to get this Wi-Fi thing squared away. One of the points that I want to bring up, because we're seeing this time and time again, and I was planning on much further than this, but I think it's important because I see some of the comments. And folks, I don't pay a lot of attention to these comments over there. I usually have, and I just don't see a lot of the comments. So I know some people were saying it's in the comments. Everybody's saying it. I don't see those. This discussion has been reduced to the likes of climate change. And this is one of the things I want to point out when we're dealing with some sort of psychological operation and or some sort of propagandized movement that you can see time and time again. Whether we're talking about climate change, whether we're talking about COVID and vaccinations and all those other things, one of the things they have in common, and you also have this issue when you talk to liberals and Democrats, when you start presenting them questions and are trying to have a good faith discussion with these people, they reduce themselves to ad hominems and personal attacks. So it's things like, if you're talking to somebody, I was listening to Joe Rogan podcast about climate change. One was a physicist, and the other guy was some sort of climate, I don't know, scientist / professor. And, you know, they were presenting all the evidence against at least what is being presented as far as proof of climate change. Whether we're talking about, well, hey, look, you know, that movie that Al Gore put out way back when, all the predictions that we've heard time and time again, none of that has come true. And we have all these people that are claiming to be climate activists. They're buying properties on the beach when the seas are supposed to be rising. And when you bring that up they say things like climate denier. When you start talking politics or trying to have a good faith discussion with liberals, they say racist, Nazi, whatever else. What I have tried really hard to do throughout this discussion is have that good faith conversation with everybody in this space, because I don't think this should be divisive. You guys know, if you've watched this channel, I've had people on that I completely disagree with, where we can sit and talk back and forth and challenge each other's ideas and have this exchange of information, right? And now what I'm seeing is that the we'll call it the alternate theory crowd has taken over. And if you say anything or challenge anything, or you debunk something that is utterly ridiculous, the first thing they call you is just one of a couple things. Number one, Fed, because they got no answer for you, or you're paid by Israel. I see a bunch of things talking about shekels and just anti-Semitic nonsense over there in the comments. So number one, if you're going to do that, you're just going to be banned. You're not an adult. You don't deserve to have this conversation. You have free speech, but I'm not going to sit here and let you troll the comment section, and we're just not going to do that. You can go do that with somebody else. You can go to your own echo chamber if you don't like your ideas challenged. So I'll leave that there. The other thing that's been perpetuated by social media that's a clear lie is that the crime scene was paved over 24 hours later. That was going on for a long time, around the 16th, 17th, 18th, and some people still believe that. The crime scene was not paved over in 24 hours. Charlie was assassinated on September 10th. Construction on the area didn't start until September 14th. Law enforcement had 3 full days to process there from the FBI and everything else. So 3 days to process that small area where he was killed, that is a significant amount of time and more than enough needed. Now, the fact is the FBI is not going to release that until they feel like they've completed that task. And once they say, hey, we're done here, and they release it back to UVU, who owns the property, I mean, technically it's a public university, it's there to do with what they want. And of course, if I was in charge, I don't know if I would have done what they did, but the fact is they had a bunch of biological material and things like that there that they had to get rid of. And on top of that, I do think that there was a sentiment of trying to give it a reface to be less traumatic. I mean, a lot of this, like when there's schools that there's mass shootings and they bulldoze the whole thing, it's not because of they're trying to cover up a conspiracy. It's because of the trauma of kids that have to go back to school and things like that. I think it was reasonable. And I think anyone that's saying, hey, they contaminated a crime scene or they covered the crime scene, it was no longer a crime scene. I've talked to several law enforcement professionals. They said there was nothing strange about that or anything else. And those are facts. Whether you like it or not, that is a fact. They can't keep it a crime scene for weeks and weeks and weeks. It's a school. People got having to look at all of that stuff every single day. What's your thoughts on that, Bronson?
Yeah, I don't even know how much of a crime scene it really is. You know what I mean? It's pretty clear what happened. He was shot once, and they rushed him to a hospital.
Yeah. Folks, people are still saying the audio is jacked up. It seems normal over here on my end. I don't know what's going on, so I apologize. Maybe YouTube is still kind of digging in. I know there was a couple of questions in there why I received a strike. So I received a strike. I'll answer that real quick before we go deeper into this. I received a strike from a video that I posted like 4 or 5 weeks ago. There was nothing in that should have violated any terms and conditions. And then, by the way, once they did give me the strike, I did challenge it. It was confirmed by review, and it was a firearms video, by the way, just so you guys know. But they were saying that I went over the features of a rifle, just like we do with multiple reviews that we have on our channel. There was no like, hey, we're selling this, but they stated that we were essentially selling a control gun. The funny thing is, over a couple days after I got that strike, I also received another warning on another video and they removed that content that was from 2023. They didn't give me a strike on it, but again, so that's what happened with the week suspension for those of the people that were wondering. Another lie that was propagated by social media was the landscaping work was done by Matt Robinson, Tyler's father. Okay, that is, for those of you who don't know, and I know some of these things will be news to you. And if we need to, I can pull up receipts for all of these things. We can prove this stuff. The landscaping was not done by Matt Robinson or any company that he was associated with at all. So there's that. One of the more prominent theories that were going around for a really long time was that Charlie Kirk was shot by someone in an underground hatch. All right, we see those hatches there. The problem with that, and I noticed this when I actually went there, the reason that is so ridiculous is because of this right here, folks. I don't know if people are aware of this, but we can actually see the hatches. These are utility hatches. This is how they get to electricity and some other things going on here. But we see these hatches over here. I just happened to catch this. You're distracting me, Richie. When Gary's audio goes bad, he checks to see if his kids are using Wi-Fi. If Candace's audio goes bad, she blames Israel. She doesn't know, but she knows. And there's a lot of theatrics that go in with that insinuation. But I want you guys to see, number one, these hatches were exposed to the public. I think there might have been something over this back hatch. But the fact is that this back hatch was, both of these hatches were to Charlie's far left. So the idea that somebody's going to pop out of these things and shoot Charlie is just ridiculous. It really is ridiculous. So,
and that nobody's going to see that.
Yeah. So there's that. Let's see what we else got here. Charlie was shot from another location and or direction. Look, here's what I'll say. And Bronson, I'll get your take on this as well. All the physics, all the movement, and the supersonic audio captured indicates a frontal trajectory. There's nothing that I've seen. I know people keep pointing to different spots and this and that and saying, hey, this is a entrance wound over here on the back. I just reject that outright. And I reject it based on I'm looking for what I'm trying to see as an entrance wound. But besides that, the fact that he moves backwards, you can see the physics involved, and he's clearly hit from the front. Does that clearly confirm that Tyler Robinson was the one that shot him? No. All right. I can't say that. We don't have enough evidence for that. And that's what I'm going to be honest with you guys about. You know, the problem that we have with all these other influencers is that's what they're doing. They're influencing you into a decision by pointing to all these different things and telling you that is very, basically giving this presentation conclusively when it's not conclusive at all. And by the way, it's usually filled with a lot of bad science and a lot of supposition that is just not correct. We can't say for sure that he was shot by Tyler Robinson, but what I feel very confidently about is the fact that he was shot from the front. What's your thought, Bronson?
Yeah, to me, it looks pretty clear that he's shot from the front. Some of that, like the first initial conspiracies that were put out was that it was from the side and they had the muzzle flash that happened up by the window and that you can maybe see a little speck of something that would be the projectile coming in. For one, we have better footage, you know what I mean, from that angle of Charlie, 4K, I believe, that shows a pretty clear picture that there's no entry wound on his side here, right? And the other issue that we have to take into consideration, especially with a lot of cell phone footage, anytime you zoom in past the phone's like, basic resolution, now you're starting to worry about things like interpolation.
Sorry, I was trying my guy back there to fix the mic a little bit, see if it was cutting out because of audio level or something like that. Yeah. Like I said, I just don't see any real indication of anything other than a frontal shot, and I think that people are grasping at straws when they're saying something else. Period. Hey, real quick, folks, I didn't know if I was going to be able to get to this tonight, but I do want to show you guys the work that we've been doing on the GPS or the 3D mapping that we did. I have a guy here that has actually been doing the 3D imagery work, specifically including some of the objects that weren't there when we did the scan, and that is the tent and making sure that all the other features that are relevant to this conversation were actually built specifically to scale, and also making sure everything's accurate so that we can go through this 3D model and actually see if there's lines of sights. And it's pretty revealing on some of these. I think it's pretty interesting to see. Let me go ahead. CJ, are you there? CJ. Well, we'll see if CJ comes. Oops. We'll see if CJ comes in here. Anyways, he's going to go through that because it's in there. We're actually trying to get this rendered to a point where we can put this out. Right now, it's such a large file. He has the computers that are able to kind of make sure that works properly. He is going to be able to scale this down to where we can disseminate that file and get it up and running. All right, CJ, are you around? I see your mic is muted at the moment.
Hey, Gary, how you doing?
Good, CJ. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good.
CJ, how you doing, man? Awesome.
I am
Awesome.
working on this file. It's a pretty big file here. But let me see if I can. First of all, I need to pull it up here. I've been working in a bunch of different programs to try and get the mesh data.
Some audio. Yep. Sorry, I'm sitting with some audio features.
Sounds pretty cool there. Let me see here a second. Make sure I can get this thing to work properly. When you're talking about 800 million polygon, or actually 800 million points of data and 285 million meshes, it's a lot of data. So let me get this thing set, and then I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. How do I do that on this thing? I've never been on this.
I'm going to let you.
Do I hit the present button here?
Hit the present button. Yep, hit the present button.
Look at that. It's asking me everything. All right, here. Is it going to let me pick the file that I want to pick here, though? That's the question. I can't access that screen. Hold on, let me see if it does a different screen here. Two monitor sharing screen. I'll figure this out here, buddy. It won't let me share a window here. Select window. We're having problems with the technical one on here with StreamYard.
Definitely having tonight.
What's that?
Definitely we're having some issues tonight.
Hey, man.
Apparently we've been having audio issues. CJ,
Why?
yeah. All right, folks. So we'll get back into this. We'll get CJ on there and make sure that we're technically able to go on with that. Oh man. All right. So the other big thing that people were promoting, and the point here is, folks, is establishing this pattern where people have put out a lot of bad information and have completely. We talk about prejudice in jury, right? it has completely changed the way that people view this entire situation. One of the other things people were saying, the surveillance footage from the rooftop was AI because pedestrians disappear behind a tree. I put out a video. I showed you that wasn't true. The shadows disappear on the white portions of that because of normal video function. When we have all these super highlights, high highlights, it's going to wash out the black portions of that, which is the same reason that when he actually goes and puts his arms down and things like that, his arms look transparent because it's washing out portions of that black image, which was his arm. All right. I've already seen people talking about it over there. Two things that I'm going to lump together kind of because they're both ridiculous, and that's the camera gun and the palm gun. Folks, we have had good footage of who we know to be Rick Cutler for a really long time. We've seen his hand on his arm, and he moves. He's like scratching his arm. He's moving his arm. Hand. I don't know what he's doing, to be honest with you. Really doesn't matter. But what I can tell you definitively is he doesn't have a gun in his hand. He doesn't have a palm gun. The idea that you're going to put this it's actually a pretty large thing. It's like this. It's like the size of this nicotine pouch roll is what a palm gun is, and then there is no barrel that is going between his fingers. And what a palm gun is for, folks, is basically point blank shooting. You don't sit there and aim that at any sort of distance. The 15 to, I don't know, it's at least 15, probably 10 yards actually from where he was to where Charlie Kirk was. We can pull that up and measure that at some point, but you're not going to shoot somebody, and we're definitely not going to see the energy transfer that we saw there. And the other one was the camera gun. People saying he was shot from behind from the camera. Like, if you believed either one of those, I am not trying to insult you. I'm really not. If you bought into either one of those, this is where you need to do that cognitive security check. Because for whatever reason, you bought into something that is totally improbable and ridiculous in of itself. What are your thoughts on that, Bronson?
I think people need to be really careful when it comes to what they're willing to believe, what they're willing to consider. And I really think, I understand, like, for the most part, a lot of this is fun to people. Like, you know what I mean? It's entertaining, but they need to be really careful what kind of crazy they're feeding with this stuff.
I agree. Yeah. And again, when you're accusing someone of murder without any evidence whatsoever, I mean, you really need to do an ethics check too. Like, that's part of this. Like, I mean, have some morals. The other one that I have talked about more than once, but I keep seeing in the comments, is that, I did want to say that after we had the palm gun, that later turned into he was holding some sort of detonator. So that's another thing that I've continued to see with these theories, is they continue to evolve from one thing to the next. When there's enough information to explain at least portions of it or that part of it, it morphs into something else. And that in of itself is a little dumb too.
Yeah, there's a new one out. I don't know if you saw that he's holding a rangefinder now as well.
Now, I did see, I haven't looked into that. I did see some sort of footage where I don't know if he's holding a rangefinder. It does look like it's possibly, so they make these small little handheld, like you might as well call them a monocular. It's like a 3X or a 4X fixed power single eye binocular, right? And I just saw a clip of it. I didn't get to really study it or look at it closely. That may be possible, but that was a completely different video, and it wasn't from the exact same time period for sure. I don't know if he's holding a rangefinder or not, so I won't comment on that. I didn't get to look into it. The other one that's being propagated and is still out there is that Charlie Kirk was not taken to the nearest hospital. Folks, I'm going to share my screen, and we'll see if we can do this effectively here. But we have this right here. Let me see which one this is. Yep, this is Timpanogos. All right, so I'm going to share this with you. So I have a pin dropped exactly where that SUV was. And if we look at this, and this is currently the time. If you do this during the day, the midday or whatever else, it's usually about 6 minutes. But right now, based on traffic, it's basically rush hour right there. It's almost what's basically 6 o'clock or 6:40 there in Utah. All right, it's 9 minutes there, or 3.4 miles to Timpanogos. If we go over here and I share this one with you instead here, this is the, let me find this exact. That's not the right. There we go. Intermountain Health. All right. A lot of people have been talking about this one. All right. This one is at least 4 or 5 minutes further than Timpanogos was. Now, there may be some argument here we can talk about, because basically Timpanogos is a level 3 trauma center and Utah Valley is a level 2 trauma center, but it is significantly further away. And during the day, there's not going to be that big of a difference between their capabilities. There's some kind of technical capabilities of what determines what's a level 2 or level 3. A level 2 has more capabilities than a level 3, but there again, it is a good 4 or 5 minutes further away than Timpanogos was. Now, I know a lot of people were talking about Orem Community Hospital, and I'll share this tab that we have right here. So Orem Community Hospital does not have a trauma level designation. All right, they're not equipped for trauma care, at least enough to be certified as a level 3 or whatever else. Now, Utah Valley Hospital in Provo, which is significantly farther away, that they're associated with, is a level 2, but that is not the same location. So the fact is Charlie Kirk was brought to the nearest and the quickest hospital location. So you just need to be aware of that.
Ideally, you would think too that they would have like a predetermined plan in case of emergency, what they would do, right?
Yeah.
That would be a pretty standard thing. So you would think that they would have already kind of mapped out or had an idea of which hospital they would be going to if something were to happen.
All right, folks, give me just 1 second. I'm going to check the audio and still see if there's anything going on back there. The only thing I can think of is connection. I checked the mixer board a few minutes ago, but let me check over there.
Hey, you guys, be sure to like. Let's get some W's in the chat, huh?
All right. I don't know if that's helping at all. And again, folks, I apologize. So it is what it is. Let me just check one other thing real quick. All right. Bronze, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
All right. Seeing Dr. Plus. All right. So anyways, hopefully the audio clears up. And again, I apologize. I think it's because we are on a satellite Wi-Fi and it is raining here, folks. So I apologize. Another theory that should have been put to bed right away, but it persisted for a really long time, was the Bush shooter. The other thing I'll tell you, folks, being at that location, the idea that somebody shot from that balcony, I mean, it looks so much closer. It's ridiculous. That Bush there was nobody up there. We've also found out now, using the model that we have, that you actually can't get line of sight to Charlie, even from that landing. And we'll end up sharing all that information with you and giving it to you and all those things. You guys will see that. Another lie was there's no footage of Tyler Robinson taking the shot. There definitely is. All right, there's definitely footage of him taking the shot. We just don't have it. Just because we don't have evidence doesn't mean that evidence doesn't exist. Another thing that was going around forever was that there was no autopsy or medical examiner's report. There was. So
We should probably just touch on that real quick,
Yeah.
Gary.
go ahead.
It's in the charging documents, and I've seen a lot of people referencing a sentence in there that talks about that he went out of camera view, and they're using that as like some sort of gotcha that the feds don't actually have him on camera.
Mhm.
If you continue reading, it definitely describes him running to and then going down into a prone position and then getting up and running and jumping off of the roof. So they definitely have that on that security cam.
Yep. And folks, we've read that charging documents. We've highlighted that exact sentence multiple times on this. So there's that. Back on here. Hopefully this will work. Let me add CJ to the stage, and I'm going to add his rendition of the. CJ, can you hear me?
I can hear you fine. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, man. Looks like we're finally good to go.
Man, it's a
So
that was a struggle.
let's talk about what you got here, bud.
All right. Well, what we did is we took you had a gentleman fly a drone to do a stereoscopic LiDAR image of UU, which pretty much gives you a good detailed. I know this is not going to be the best detailed here because it was dark and you have to fly really high, but it gives you good detail, but it gives you an accurate measurement of everything, better than Google Earth can do or Google Maps. So what I did is I took his image, and we had to render this thing down and bake it over and over and over again, all the meshes, because I don't even want to turn the meshes on right now. Move it around, and you did an example of it, but it was really pixelated and it was really jaggedy. We still have that problem a little bit with this. I don't know if you can see my mouse moving across.
Yep, we can.
And we're not in a high rendered version of this. Once we're done, and completely done, we're going to have a high rendered version, and it's going to look 100 times the size of the tent with Charlie in it, cameras, all the fencing that went around. And I'm going to try and twist this thing the proper way. Hold on, make sure you got the gimbal right on this.
So real quick, CJ, because I want people to understand like the effort and the level of work that you guys put in to make sure that this was accurate. And not only people that have been working on this.
Oh yeah, we've had a ton of help from my crew and one of my other companies. Tom, who's my CTO, he brought over his Blackwell computer running Linux and all this kind of stuff to try and figure out points of data and mash it down and all kinds of stuff, and to get accurate. I don't know what happened there, but let me flip this back over. I mean, the data had to be accurate down to, and I'm going to try and flip this thing. And remember, we're still in kind of like a render mode here, so we're not going to get the most accurate. But the idea was to make sure that this tent was at the right proportion size. I know we still have the cement in there, and to have all these things, so we knew that pillar, which is right here in that center, was lined up exact feet in. I'm going to scroll into this a little bit here, get a little better look at it here. The feet of these part of the tent, and you can see it's kind of at a little bit of an angle. I don't have the other image that has a actual drone snapshot of up above what we're looking at, but the next time we do this, I'm going to have everything so I can show how we actually put everything apart and did the proper measurements, making sure it was a 12 by 12 tent, making sure that this feet was kicked out 6 inches more than this foot, which is actually, it's a little bit of an angle. And if anybody goes on Google and they see the image, they're going to see this is exactly positioned to where everything was to the inch at UVU. So let me do this again. I know this is not the best way to do this because it's not in the right panning position, but I'm going to get this back up for you and go back down in a little bit. And let me back up a little bit here so we can show this part of it. And we are right on top of the roof right here. We're going to spin this just a little bit. All right. Oops, back it up a little. This is set for every, I think it's set for every 10 yards. So it's kind of a little jittery here. There we go. We got it halfway. But this is actually where he was prone. Whoever was said, Tyler Robinson, but we'll just leave it at that.
We definitely have footage of a person at prone in that position. So there's that.
And I can tell you that right now, this is pretty much based on, I'll take you to a couple other spots on here to show you how hard it would be to shoot from anywhere else, because you wouldn't be able to see Charlie right here. You can actually see his neck, right? I'm going to zoom in. You can see everything you need to see from that position. And again, this is an 8-foot high tent. These tables are not at the typical 30 to 32 inch high. These tables are a lot higher, and they're a lot shorter. They're not 60 inches. I think as they're 4 foot. This one. Normally these are 30 inches by 60 inches or something like that. And these three were just a little different. The cameras are placed in the right area. I got the back camera as well. We even made it so this tent is see-through. I don't have any lights or shading on right now. We made it so it's see-through for standard vinyl tents. So if anybody was behind here, would they be able to see here, depending on where the light or the sunlight is going to be? We're going to have all this to illustrate for you later on. Not today, but soon.
Yeah.
But everything we built here is going to be able to give a perspective of by the inch where you can actually see Charlie and all the different angles that anything could happen. Can you see his neck? Can you see the back of his head? Can you see his chest? It just depends on when we get this thing finished. We'll be able to show you everything. Let me show you a different angle, because I know a lot of people showed this as well. And this is on top of the building.
I was going to have you go to that building and show that, as well as the bush landing.
Bush landing as well. And I have different lens, but I should probably throw this on to 50 here. There we go. It's actually on 64. I'm going to throw it on 60. That's going to be more like normal here. And it is very difficult to see from that angle, and it is very difficult to see from this angle as well. Now, I'm going to try and get in there as best as possible. There you are. This is actually where I think some people say it was coming in between the two buildings right here. You would have to be right here on this edge, and you still can't see his head.
Go to the spot where about the bush was. I just want people to be able to see that.
All right. The Gilly Man bush.
The Gilly bush.
All right, let's see here. The way I have this in render form is kind of difficult to pan around. But it's right here. I'll back up a little bit. I'll be able to set cameras for this. I'm going to be stuck inside of a wall here in a second. Here we go.
And folks, this isn't even going to be the final program that it rests on. We're actually going to, we're going to put it in a much more easier to navigate program.
I'm going to do this my locations here.
Yep.
Sorry, it's taking a minute here. Hopefully I won't back up into the wall. I have to change my location at, there we go. This is where I wish I had the Yeah, we're set up right on top of this edge. I gotta move forward a little bit. That's the problem with this program here that we're working as. Little teeny tiny steps. All right. Another inch in. All right, that's our level right here.
Yeah, so that's basically that they would see with the bush, folks, from the bush side. And when it comes to some of the other locations on this side, which are even higher up, and potentially we could get a visual because it is slightly further back. We'll be able to play with those. Now, CJ, once this is rendered and it's done, and we have a more usable version of this, because I know you guys have put tons and tons of hours and computing power into this thing to make it usable to the public. What is the level of accuracy as far as measurements and things like that once we get that done?
We're going to be to a position where we're going to be down to at least a 4-inch, yields one way or another. And that's, I'm just going to say that because, the drone footage is accurate. We have, we're actually, set this thing up. So we're in Utah. We have the elevation set. Everything is, exact. I mean, we actually put a pinpoint to where Charlie was, and I made that seaplane center to be actually right there where he was with the elevation, with the proper coordinates. The only thing will be, any difference is if there's any shift in the mesh when it's being imported or whatever. But the scale of the model that we have is going to be to the inch. I mean, to the millimeter. I mean, we're everything is standard size. A tents, 12 by 12. There was a 13 by 13 tent. I don't think he was using a 13 by 13 tent just based on the size of the tables and other things that when we put our measurements to it, we build these 3D models, to accuracy.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much it for now. I mean, I've got a lot more to come. Hopefully at sometime next week or even earlier than that.
I appreciate.
You've been putting me to work for the last 10 days. So.
No, man. I appreciate all your work, and I know everybody else out there does too. And folks, we're committed to getting this to you. It's taken much longer, and it's been much more work than we expected. But trust me, we are. And when I say we, I should say CJ is working hard at it with several of his team members doing it as well. So there's probably I don't know. There's over 100 man hours, I'm sure, into that as it stands, isn't it, CJ?
Easily,
yeah.
I haven't showered in days.
All right, CJ, listen, man, we appreciate you coming on and showing us that. Thank you very much.
Man, I appreciate it.
Sounds good. Talk to you later. All right, so you guys are stuck with Brunson and I back again. Hopefully the audio's gotten better. I don't know if it has or not.
Doesn't look like it.
I'm not gonna do on that. There you go. There you go. Look, I think you guys get the point. We can go through several more. One of the big ones that when it comes to that you need a major cogsec check with is Charlie Kirk faked his death. Look, I don't know what to say about that. People talking about squibs and special effects and the hologram machine. I don't know what to do with that. And then finally, the one that keeps popping up and some prominent folks are pushing is these drones that no one can see and no one can hear. Look, there's a significant physics problem when it comes to drones big enough to carry a payload that would produce a projectile that would kill a person. We're not talking about even the big drones that we have in the military. Those are dropping guided bombs and missiles. Those are very different that's very different physics that you're dealing with than actually something that can actually shoot a projectile accurately. And there's some ballistic problems with that. The other issue with that is there is no chance that you'd have a drone big enough to carry that payload and still not be able to see or hear that drone, right? But all of these lies, and these are lies and they're misinformation, they're not coming from the FBI. They're not coming from the U.S. government. They're coming from social media, right? They're coming from the internet. Some of these, I think, are, if I'm being very charitable, some of these are being pushed by just confused people. Some of them are definitely just straight out pushing. It's fraud. It's fraud. There's no other way to say it. And then I do think some of the stuff is being pushed also by intelligence operatives that want to see dissension, division. And then I also think this is some of the stuff is being pushed by political operatives that have agendas and that are exploiting this whole situation in a way that is causing more division in the right than I think I've ever seen. You got anything to add to that?
And evidence of that with the New York Times article that was put out, basically saying that there was a heated discussion between Kash Patel and Joe Kent, and then multiple people ran with that and even put the claim on there that Kash Patel is blocking Joe Kent from doing whatever investigation he was doing. As far as I could tell from that article, there's nothing in there saying he blocks him or is blocking him from doing anything. It sounded to me like he was just concerned. He had no idea that Joe Kent had access to that information, found out about it, and probably just decided that they needed to sit down and have a meeting and make sure everybody was on the same page, so certain information isn't accidentally leaked.
Yeah.
And it
look.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, you go ahead.
Well, I was just saying, I can't imagine that the New York Times would want to protect information like that and save the right. You know what I mean? Something tells me it wouldn't stop them at all from embellishing a little bit just to kind of stir the pot.
Yeah.
Because they have to be paying attention of what's going on with the division that's currently happening.
The other thing that this is being very effective, and it even affects me in that I watched this and I'm even disturbed by it, I guess. And that is the idea that we have these citizen journalists that are supposed to take the place of the corrupt mainstream media. Folks, this stuff is just, there are so many pages and profiles and channels that I used to watch that I used to think were serious people that I won't even watch anymore because they're not. They have lost all credibility in my eyes. And right now, the sad fact is you can get more reliable news on CNN of all places. And I don't even know, I don't watch CNN, but my point is it's gotten so bad that you are now racing to the bottom with CNN, MSNBC, and some of these other news channels that people have abandoned, and they're going to end up seeing the light. And that's a real problem with some of these social media personalities that claim to be citizen journalists. Is they're burning their credibility extremely fast. And it's after this is all said and done, they're going to realize how short-sighted all this was just for a few likes, clicks, and subscribers, because it's not going to last very long.
That's another thing too, if I can just touch on that quick.
Jump in there anytime.
A lot of people, I see a lot of comments about how come mainstream media isn't covering this? Why aren't they looking into all of these conspiracies? Why aren't they trying to find the truth? If I were, and most mainstream media is pretty left-leaning, right? You would agree with that? Okay. Why would they bother trying to look into anything or correct any of the conspiracy theories when these conspiracy theories are completely pulling away from the narrative that it's left-wing radical violence? Just a thought.
No, it's 100%. And that's what I want to talk about a little bit too, real quick. And folks, I know the audio isn't great. I apologize. There's nothing I can do about it. I've done everything I can do on this side. It's a bandwidth issue, I guess. I don't know. I don't know if there's somebody on Rumble that can tell me if it's better on Rumble. You can try that. The tragedy of all this is that Charlie's death is being used to demonize and undermine the organization that he gave his life to, and that was TPUSA. People are demonizing his wife over all of this, and they are now making claims and accusations that people within TPUSA, and there's no evidence for this, folks. Like, again, there's some American principles that we should hold dear, and that is every person is innocent until proven guilty. They're not even being questioned, and there's a reason for that, and that is because they're not involved. There's no evidence that TPUSA is benefiting from Charlie's death. There's no evidence that his wife sure as hell isn't benefiting. And quite frankly, I find all that stuff disgusting. I really do. And I think, and again, I know there's some good people out there that are falling victim to this. But again, you need to gird up your mind a little bit and really think this stuff through. They're not involved. The other thing that I've been really bothered about was that this situation, his death, is being used to completely mischaracterize Charlie's stance on Israel. There is text messages that I think are very likely true that show that he was waning in his support. Just so we're clear, Charlie Kirk died a Zionist. He didn't just, say this was a political disagreement, and he had a clear disagreement, as do I, with how that war was being prosecuted in Gaza and some other aspects of political nature. It's like, just because Joe Biden's office, who I thought was one of the worst presidents in U.S. history, it was basically weekend at Bernie's. That doesn't mean that I no longer want to support the United States. All right. There's a clear distinction there. Charlie Kirk believed in Israel's right to exist. And that's another problem with this, is the word Zionist is thrown around so much. I don't even know what it means to most of these people. They say, oh, you're Zionist this. Okay. If Zionism, by definition, as I understand it, right, is Israel's right to exist as a nation state. Okay, then I'm a Zionist. I think they have a right to exist as a nation state. Do I think that we should be sending them the money that we do? No. Do I think that they could have done things differently in Gaza? I do. There's a lot of things I disagree with when it comes to Israel on a policy standpoint, but I don't disagree that they have a right to exist. And neither did Charlie. And anybody that's trying to hijack his movement, his beliefs, and trying to twist them around after he's dead and exploiting this situation, it's disgusting. All right. And you're wrong principally, but you're also wrong morally. Look, the other thing that this being used effectively, and I think this has a lot to do with the politics here, is that it's being used to undermine the Trump administration. Look, Charlie Kirk may or may not have had policy disagreements with Trump after he was elected, but he worked really hard to get him elected. And going back to the weekend of Bernie's comments, the Trump administration is not performing to what I was hoping that it would. Kash Patel, as the FBI director, isn't doing some of the things that I had hoped that he would be doing. I think Pam Bondi needs to be. With that being said, I think we need to remember where we were a little over a year ago. Again, we were being ran by a puppet government, a shadow government, and we had a puppet president. That's a better illustration of what we had going on there. This guy didn't even know what was going on, and there was lots of policies and things being put into place that are far worse than where we are today. There's a lot of work to be done. There's no doubt about it. But what this is doing is this entire event is being used to destroy the morale of Republicans and destroy the Republicans and conservatives' belief in this administration. Some of the things that they do is warranted. But what I want to protect myself from, and I hope you protect yourself from, is being convinced of losing support for a president when it's not doesn't make sense to, right? Or based on lies. And that's what we're seeing with a lot of this, is that we are being lied to. And again, it's not the U.S. government that's pushing most of these lies. It is social media and people within that. What you think, Brunson? You jump in and interrupt me anytime you want, buddy.
I mean, if we're going to compare this administration to the former one, what are we even talking about? Is current administration, my opinion, they're not doing a great job. They're still far better than the previous one. And really anything that I can see from the left forward.
If nothing else, if we did nothing else, what we did was we actually sealed off the border. We have exponentially less people coming in to our country that that are robbing our futures. We're a nation that's $37 trillion in debt. We can't afford social programs for millions and millions of people that aren't going to be able to contribute to the society. Immigration, this country is built by immigrants, and immigration is something I believe in, but we should have a process for that. And immigration should only occur if it is a net benefit to this country. And we could a bunch more political things. Yeah, again, we've continued to see that this entire event has been used to divide the right. And I can't, right now what we're seeing charlatan methods, and Google Trends is a great example of this among many other ones, that are being used to mischaracterize the truth or prove their theories because they have no physical evidence to go on. So they're grasping all these straws that nobody would accept in their normal circumstance to a narrative. I am not going to be stuck on a narrative. I don't care what narrative it is, but what I do care about is the evidence and the truth. And we're either going to be truth-oriented and truth-based and look for the truth, or you have the option to look for a narrative and then make really bad decisions to grasp onto different things that are going to support that narrative. And, hopefully you're wise enough not to fall for the latter. Again, one of the clear indications of a psyop or misinformation campaign is those ad hominem, unprovable, and unrefutable accusations. When you get on here, and it's not just me, and it's a lot of other people, and I'm sure Bronson's been subjected to a Fed, Zionists, Jews are paying you all these things. You don't have any evidence of that. Number one, it's not true. I would give my life before I took money to push a message. I'm just telling you that right now. Like I've been to combat 4 times for this country. I know the cost of this stuff. Like I would never, the idea of that is just reprehensible to me. I would never change my opinion for money or for anything else. But there's no way I can prove against that, right? And so these people are going on these misinformation campaigns, and they're using these unprovable and unrefutable accusations to undermine and to delegitimize different people out there. And it's not just me, it's a bunch of people out there. When you see an entire group that is their tactic, that they're just using these accusations and these personal attacks on people to shut them up, you can guarantee you it is a group that the belief system is built on lies, because they can't sit there and debate with you. They won't talk to you or anything else. They won't even engage with you. I've invited many people on that have many alternative beliefs, and I would love to have them on still and to talk about their worldviews in a good faith discussion. And so far that hasn't happened.
I see a lot of comments down here saying that they're just asking questions, Gary.
No, they're not asking.
They're just asking questions.
That's what I would like to do. I would like to get into a room with somebody and just ask questions. But when you if you start asking questions, like, how does this thing make sense? There's, we can take anyone, the palm gun. All right. When I start asking questions saying, hey, there's no way to aim that device, you're shooting further than it's capable of. We see no recoil. We see no muzzle flash or anything that indicates that a shot they immediately go to, you're paid by the Jews, you're a Fed, or whatever else. Point to one thing that I've said that was an outright lie at all. Now, one of the things that I talked about at the very beginning of all this was body armor. I think at this point, and I've said this many times, and even when I said that, I said, hey, look, go back to my first video. I'm not 100% sure about this. I've always been forthright when it came to what I believe to be fact and what I believe to be my own speculation. And we're all going to do that, right? We're going to speculate. I will tell you right now, I think it's most likely that he did not have body armor. I have confirmation bias, but I'm going to be honest with you about that. There's still some things that I see that are weird that would be explained by body armor. But if we have something definitive come out and says, hey, we don't have body armor or whatever else, and some of the stuff I've seen is more convincing than others, I'm fine with that. I was wrong if that's the case. And I'm going to come on here and say that to you. But when we have these people pushing these theories, they're not just asking questions. They're definitively telling you X, Y, and Z. Or the other thing that's a very common tactic in this are these insinuation accusations where it's like in a lot of eye movement, like, or what are they doing? Why? What does that mean? Like it's this innuendo that leads the viewer to believe a certain thing. And literally, I would just say this. There's some prominent folks out there where people have come to my channel and they said, this person said X, Y, and Z. And then I go watch that clip because I want to know if that person said X, Y, or Z. And that person never quite says what that person, that is the takeaway. That is the jest. That's what they're inferring without a doubt. But they're being very careful and they're being very sly. And quite frankly, they're being very disingenuous when they're making those references and what their ability. And that's what we're seeing. And that is a common tactic. It goes from innuendo, basically gossip nonsense, straight over to ad hominem attacks, personal attacks, and character assassination. They swing back and forth between those two, and that is a clear sign of disinformation. I'm just telling you that's what it is, and you can take it for
People say
what it is
that
one way or the other.
the picture of the rifle that was leaked by the New York Post is a stock photo from the internet somewhere.
Yeah.
No, why a stock photo of what? That's a pretty obscure rifle. I don't know why there would be a stock photo.
Very, very unique photo to begin with. Like if that's what you're going to leak, that's not a good one. The other thing I want to say too is like one of the things that I've seen, and we saw this, and it's not just him, but Henry Dell, who was a eyewitness that I ended up talking to. I've shared that story on here, and I posted a video. The crazy thing to me is when these eyewitnesses do come forward and they tell you their comes under attack and their motives become questioned. And you're attacking this person that has the courage to come forward and tell you what was going on and give you their perspective. That's another, like, and the reason is, let's just tell the reason, is, matter of fact, they're refuting your theory with eyewitness testimony, and it makes people mad and they get upset. And so the only thing they have left to do is to destroy that person's character, destroy that person's, undermine their credibility by, you know, assigning some sort of nefarious motive. And this is exactly why there's two things that this proves. This is why that eyewitnesses don't come forward and you don't hear the truth from a bunch of people because they're going to be attacked. This is also why you don't have all the information come from law enforcement, because it's going to be turned, twisted, and be used to muddy the water further. Whereas they want to control that information. They want to control the eyewitnesses, because the last thing you want to do is an eyewitness, that person was in on it, and now that person is giving testimony in a trial, and everybody that heard their eyewitness testimony before is like, nope, that person is a paid operative. They were in on it. They were part of the conspiracy, and you've undermined the legitimacy of the trial to begin with. That's why our justice system works the way it does. That's why a bunch of people aren't getting the information that you want so badly, because if it doesn't confirm a narrative for you, because you're not interested in the truth, you're not dedicated to the truth, you're dedicated to confirming something that you want to, people get upset. And that's just the way these things work.
Well, look at what people are doing with the little information that they have, or the little information that they keep trying to find. I mean, it's a witch hunt every other day. Somebody new. Like if you go on, just take Mikey McCoy, for example. You just go to his Instagram and look at like his most recent photos. The comments are insane.
Yeah. It's
And then people were harassing him because he didn't go on TPUSA, the Charlie Kirk show or whatever they did the other day.
Yeah.
I don't think they would have let Mikey go on even if he wanted to.
There's a thing called fight or flight for a reason, folks. Not everybody's a fighter. Some people just get up and run. And I will tell you right now, I have been in combat situations with brand new Green Berets, and it's the first time that they have ever experienced combat. And even though they go through some of the most rigorous training, both mental and physical training, there's some I've seen Green Berets do some things that are not exactly you wouldn't expect. I'll just leave it like that. Like, what the heck is going on with you? Now, a lot of them, you know, it's their first time. Shit hits the fan. They don't know how to react. Most of those guys, acclimate to that environment, and they become less responsible. We'll just say, like, in a negative way. But man, you know, these situations, high stress situations that you've never been in, and I'll just say right now, there are people in this audience that have this vision of what they would have done in an active shooting event, which is what that was. You'd be surprised at how many of you would actually react if you were in that situation. And to put judgment on people, you know, I thought the response that was given for Mike was trying to sit back and objectively analyze this stuff. And I may or may not have some confirmation bias, but it made sense to me. It was very plausible. And that is what he's told Andrew Colvett was that, look, I saw that Charlie was hit. He has basically, you know, he felt like he was a liability, and the best thing that he could do was get out of the way and get away from what he thought was going to be, you know, an active mass shooting event. He had great security there. He said, you know, all these things, like, I was going to leave it to those guys. It's not exactly wrong. It doesn't look good from an optics standpoint, I understand, but, you know, getting out of there. And then also the idea that he was on the phone. They also said that basically when that shot went off, he had his phone in his hand and he put his finger in his ears like this. And you actually see both of his hands go up like that. So I was like, oh, okay, well, that makes a lot more sense than he's, you know, hey, guess what? And this is what no one actually says it. It's completely implicit, but they're basically, oh, yep, we got him. Confirmed dead. That's what you guys are. That's what certain people out there are saying, but you won't even commit to that. But that's what you're leading people on to believe, and you know it's wrong. There's no doubt about it. What else?
They don't believe the official story that some left-leaning ideological person who did like Charlie Kirk did it, but one of his closest friends, who's incredibly Christian, is capable of either setting this whole thing up, being a part of it, or even knowing about it. The one's not possible. That's got to be a lie. But this makes sense with Mikey McCoy.
Yeah,
it's insane.
People
absolutely insane.
Under stressful, chaotic events like that, people do a lot of weird, inexplicable things. And to sit back and try to, you know, when you suddenly think that, you know, you're a human behaviorist. I had a whole kind of some points in here. Like, suddenly everybody out there is a ballistician. Everybody knows everything there is to do with ballistics. Suddenly everybody's has law enforcement forensic experience and knows exactly what should or shouldn't be done on a crime scene. Suddenly everybody out there has they're a medical professional and knows what did or didn't happen, if it was decorticate posturing, if it was corticate posturing, and all kinds of weird suppositions in between there. If he was dead there, if he was dead at the hospital, you know, it's just wild speculation. And then you're pretending that you know the answer to it, and you don't. And I don't either. And we don't know. And I think we're all going to be able to better assess some of the information as it comes out from the trial. That, to me, is one of the main things. Like, then we'll be able to see what the actual evidence is. But we're going to have patience, and there's money to be made on clicks, views, and all those engagements and all those things. So, and it's sexy, it's salacious, it's sensational. That's what attracts. And so that's what's going to be much more popular than, sitting on here and trying to go through the facts, and also getting on here and convincing people they've been lied to. Because what's that saying? It's easier to convince a man of a lie than it is to convince a man that he's been lied to, something along those lines. It's very true. And people are very resistant to that because they think they are more resistant to believing false information than they actually are. And I'm as guilty of that as anybody else. That's not trying to disparage people. I'm just trying to give everybody some insight onto what's going on with some of this stuff. Let's get to let's go through some of the super chats, and then we'll get some live chats. And again, folks, I apologize about the audio. There's not much that I can do with that. Clinton Grove, any updates on the 3D scan? We covered that. There's many people that decided to join as members. Look, we really appreciate the support. JJ from Iowa, Mr. Turpin, 52, Leo, thank you guys. Elena, aka Neely, 2024 and 2025 are historic for our children and their children, etc. I agree. Richie Bernard became a YouTube member. Thank you very much. GS70 Stealth. I do my fair share of cert research before responding, as we should. Untelevised trial will just be a chaotic conspiracy that it was not Tyler talking in court being found guilty. You're right. Like it is super. It will be detrimental to the country and to our politics in general if that trial is not televised.
So far, what we've seen from the judge, which isn't much, but the few decisions that he did make on those motions that were made, it sounds like he's fairly balanced, and I would assume that he's not going to completely remove cameras from the trial.
We'll see. Yeah, I hope you're right. I hope you're right. Hey, Gary, so glad you've been paroled. The ideological Psyop program is also rampant here in Australia, and we need more voices like yours. Thank you, Dennis. I appreciate that. You do need more voices for freedom and liberty in Australia. There's no doubt about it. When Gary's audio goes bad, he checks if kids are using Wi-Fi. If Candace's audio goes bad, she blames Israel. I think that's, I don't know. I need to be able to pin that. That was pretty funny. Someone was standing. Both of those doors were visible the entire time. Why would DNI probing potential involvement of foreign intelligence jeopardize the case? What is Cash afraid of? I know what you're talking about, Tulsi Gabbard, and Joe Walsh. Joe Walsh? Is it Joe Walsh? Not Joe Walsh. Ken. I don't know. I don't know what the reasons for that are. I think that needs an explanation. Look, there's competing forces and also competing, and I don't think, look, Joe Kent, I believe he was at that first group where I was before he went and did other things. As far as I know, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that, but what I would try to avoid doing is, again, creating this additional conspiracy in your mind when we don't know some of the details behind that. He may have, Cash may have real good reasons for that. I don't know. Bluebird 711. Thank you, Bluebird. Always appreciate you over in the chats, and I appreciate you becoming a member. You probably have to restart the system. Cut the extreme, save the others. At this point, the jurors are tainted, which will take 3 to 4 years down the road because who does not watch YouTube? Ha ha ha. That's actually less people than we think. All right, look, we get trapped in our own little echo chamber of competing ideas on YouTube, on X, and things like that. I think the majority of people are not paying as close attention to it as we are, and I know we think that everyone is paying is myopic on this topic as we are, and I don't think that's actually true. generally speaking. Believe it or not, there's a lot of people out there that really don't have that much of an opinion on this. No, it's not clear what happened. I agree. It's not clear what happened. Talk about Google search results. I will. I'll come back to that. We'll talk about that. We'll do another deep dive on that. Folks, don't you think that Gary knew what was wrong with the audio? That he would stop and fix it? Bitchin' definitely won't fix it. All that's true. Gary Shaver is a voice of truth. So glad you're back and you're working on the timeline show yet, showing all the actual evidence that is currently available. Yes, we will do. I have that planned. We will definitely do that. I think it's also, look, I've spent a lot of time because I think it's important to discredit what I think are just overt lies. There's another one out there. I don't know. Bronson, have you seen the IR laser one?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay. So there is a prominent X account out there pushing this new idea. He pushes a new one every single day that IR lasers were captured. Now, what is true is that you can capture IR lasers sometime in certain conditions with an iPhone. An IR laser you can't see with your eye, but sometimes the optical sensors in your phone will actually can pick them up. Not all the time, by the way, and typically not in daylight either, by the way. But with that being said, okay, anybody that is saying that somebody was painting a target, which is one of the phrases that was being used by this account, painting the target with an IR laser during daylight hours, there are 1,000 reasons why you wouldn't use an IR laser in daylight hours in that type of environment, and there are 0 reasons why you would use an IR laser. You know how you paint the target in daylight hours? You tell the shooter, hey, this is a picture of Charlie Kirk. This is who you're going to be shooting. Like the idea that you need to target designate someone so you can pick them out. And there was also some talk about, guided munitions, which is also just ridiculous, fanciful nonsense. There's just new nonsense every single day, and it's hard to keep up with. My point is that I think it's really important to point out the lies so that you can, and for me and other people that have different specialty skills and experience and things like that, can say, hey, this is a lie, and here's why it's a lie, because technically it falls on its face. And that's what we've tried to do on the show. And that makes, number one, it makes you smarter, right? It's educational for you, but also it'll help you see other similar ones as well. And they're going to continue to come down the pike. With how much we spend on DoD, you'd think someone would have come up with the technology to acquire shielded target behind a tent. Yeah, I agree. We definitely spend a lot of money on DoD. There's no doubt about it. With how much we spend on the Department of War, don't you think someone would have developed some more silent killer drones yet? High custom air guns can be light enough for a pretty small drone. I not disagree with that. If you look at like the air guns that are usable, that would actually kill a person, they're larger than similar caliber actual conventional munitions. They require a very high pressure air tank to be able to hold that air, the amount of air, and they're actually quite loud. Air guns are not quiet, especially when you get into 30 caliber ones that have enough velocity that it's actually going to kill someone. So if you guys look those up, you'll see that. I believe the judge ruled no cameras in courtroom this week. I don't think that's correct, Catherine.
Nope.
Yeah.
Nope. All he ruled on is that he cannot be shown in shackles in any type of restraints. No photos or video allowed of that. That's it.
So, yep, here we go. 100% Gary is paid by Israel. Netanyahu's on the Epstein list. He's joking, or he would be banned. I'm just not going to put up with that stuff. I know who you are. Gary, I respectfully disagree regarding the climate change. You live on a barrier island in the Atlantic Ocean. When storms hit the island, it's underwater, as well as downtown Charleston, where my kids go up to school. This is new. Catherine, number one, I appreciate your respectful discussion on this. What I would say is this. There's definitely climate change, and this was addressed, and I highly recommend, I'm going to pull this up. If you guys are interested in climate change, I think this was a very good discussion with Joe Rogan And let me just get you the episode. Two highly acclaimed scientists. Look, the climate does change. And this is one of the things that they cover at length. And there are times when we go through different changes in water levels and sea levels and all those things, right? It's episode 2397 with Richard Lindzen and William Happer. Richard Lindzen, PhD, is a professor emeritus of Earth, Atmospheric, and Planetary Sciences at Massachusetts at MIT. William Happer, PhD, is professor. No, sorry, same one. The other guy. Yeah, no, that's all right. William Happer, PhD, is professor emeritus of physics at Princeton University. So both these guys give some really compelling arguments. No one's claiming that the Earth doesn't change. What they're talking about specifically is the effect of carbon and carbon dioxide, right? And what we're doing as far as the Industrial Revolution and everything else. There's some really good data out there that indicates that we're not having the effect they say we are. And I would just watch that. They're going to be able to speak to it much better than I can. I didn't take notes and write down every little thing. But what I can tell you is that there's a lot of provably incorrect misinformation being put out by climate activists. That's a fact. Their models have been wrong time and time again. I do think that is another, and they talk about this at length, that this is something that is being exploited to increase government control on people. And I think it's more of a political movement than it is an environmental movement. And there's not a lot of clear data. Well, there's a lot of data against the idea that our carbon levels are what's having the negative effects that people claim it is. I guess I'll kind of. What's your thoughts on it?
On climate change?
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of money involved in it.
Yeah, there is a lot of money involved in it. Ruling was no filming shackles, but must wear shackles sounds bad. There's an easy workaround with that. All right, I'm gonna get some of the lives here, and we'll see how that goes. No one seems to consider the massive deforestation taking place a result of reckless development and ranching. Petrol is one thing, but deforestation alone is going to have an effect. One of the things that one of the guys talks about is that our planet currently, because of the positive impacts of carbon, is that our planet is greener than it ever has been. I do think that regionally, when we're talking about deforestation, it causes some major issues. I'm just not necessarily convinced. And again, they talk about it at length. They provide a bunch of data. Go watch the show. Don't argue with me because I'm giving you really surface level stuff here. But I do think that there is good, clear data that deforestation is having a climate or a global impact. But it is a problem when we just completely cut everything down. The opposite is true too. And I do think when we don't manage our forests, just like we see in California and Washington State, Oregon, and some other places where they have strict rules against that, where they haven't done any management there and it's just overgrown with undergrowth and just deadfall and all of this tinder waiting to be ignited by lightning and go up like a freaking, freaking fireball, right? I mean, there's a balance there that we need to achieve. And the same thing with, it goes with, it doesn't make sense if we just start shooting all the deer all the time. The fact is we have more deer and healthier deer in North America than we have at any point. And it's because those are well managed. We cull the herds every year, right? We get rid of, and there's actually, they actually have programs where if deer are sick, they go out there and shoot them. But of course, there's some competition out there when it comes to just hunting. So we're managing those resources properly, and that's what it takes to make sure that we have healthy resources. You can't go to extremes one way or the other. If someone violates court orders on the use of video in the case, the judge can remove internet access to court video and limit it to in-person gallery attendance. Makes sense? Just like recycling is fake. Well, Shannon, you're onto something there. Yeah, this is another point that they brought up. Dennis says CO2 has been up around 1,000 parts per million in the past. These days is under 400. I think they said it was around 400, 440 parts per million or something like that. They said the real problem is if it gets, I believe, below like 200 parts per million, then nothing can survive. So I think that 400 parts per million, 440 or something like that, where we're at, probably a pretty good spot. I'd rather be a Fed than just come across dumb. I agree with you, Dave. I don't want to be tricked by our government. I don't want to be tricked by a bunch of grifters on the internet either. I think that's the goal here.
I would prefer to not be either of those two things.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like we don't want to be tricked by either one. Yep. Snow close to your creator. Do not be tempted to prove yourself by those who reject love. I'll buy that. Yeah, the climate's never been static. Werewolf 6 says the climate's been changing since the days of dinosaurs. It's not a big deal at all. All of this climate change talk now is just a big money scam. I agree. It drives me crazy when people say chemtrails are the same as contrails. Contrails are vapors that dissipate. Chemtrails do not. I see chemtrails every damn day. Look, we've had, I can't think of his name. Look, we've done several shows on chemtrails. That was something that I thought was ridiculous. It was a conspiracy. I think there's more merit to it than I originally gave it for sure. And a lot of people out there, it's one of those things you're like, oh, there we go. Oh, Mr. Chemtrail Johnny over here coming out with whatever. I would look into that because I think there are programs that they are trying to manipulate climate, and they're doing that through airborne means. I do believe that to be true. Gary, now you're an apologist for climate change? Come on, man. I don't think I said anything that I'm an apologist for climate change. I think I said just the opposite. You know, it's interesting to me how I can make a video or sit on here and talk for a really long time. And, you know, with my videos especially, I take multiple takes of almost every segment of it. I try my best and I'll listen to what I said, make sure I didn't say anything stupid, because I have done that many times, right? But, you know, I am very careful about what I say. And then when I put that out, the things that people hear me say in that video and are trying to argue, I'm like, that's not what I said at all. It's always it's interesting to observe human, I don't know, tendencies. Do have the best name on YouTube. You do. You do. All right. Let me get down here. All right. Shooter S talks about the confirmed foreign planes. Shooter, I'll be honest with you. I know there's some discussion about planes, and I feel like those have been debunked. Those were early on. Bronson, you got any additional input on that? I would say confirmed is a pretty strong word, and I'm not sure I've heard of any foreign planes. I have heard of military planes.
I'm open to listening about it. Show me a connection.
Yeah,
show me a connection.
Again, there's some of these peripheral topics that I can't even come up with like a correlation. Like, again, people are grabbing all these different weird things all the way around all of this and trying to string it together and smush it, you know, trying to fit a square block into a round hole with some of the stuff. And there's some of these things that I just haven't paid a lot of attention to because I spend so much time on things that I do think matter, and I do think they're important.
I don't understand how people like are coming up with how complicated of a process this would have needed to be.
Yeah.
In order to unalive Charlie Kirk on an open campus in a wide open area with rooftops all over the place and minimal security.
It was so sophisticated and so high tech.
Yeah.
But yet they decided that they were going to use a 30-06 for the Patsy gun and use like a 223 for the ridges with the ballistics. I don't think they're anything that can't happen. All right, but there are some challenges with the ballistics. But here's the problem. We don't know what the projectile was. We don't know what the ammo was. We don't know the condition of that ammo. You don't even know the weight of the ammo. You don't know if it was 130 grain or 180 grain or anything else. We don't know if that ammo was exposed to the environment. We don't know if it was hand loaded or store bought. Like, there's so many variables that we don't know that are critical to make a conclusion on the ammunition to determine whether or not it should have performed the way that it did, that we got the results that we did, that you can't come to a conclusion. Anybody that says you can don't know what they're talking about, period. Like, we don't know. Now, we get to the trial and they come out and they say, hey, you know what, they were using Remington 180 grain soft point or something like that, and it worked perfectly fine. There was nothing weird about it. Gary's going to be the first one to come out here and say, look, there's something wrong here. That doesn't make sense to me. But again, I can't come to that conclusion. And I know a lot about ammunition. I know a lot about shooting. I do a lot of ballistic testing. Ballistics do weird things, but you know what? They also do really weird things when you don't know what you're shooting or what you're even talking about, because we don't know all the things that I listed. Those are important key components to come to a conclusion. We have 0 of them, period. Yeah.
And I don't think we have any exact clarification yet on what happened inside of Charlie's body, right?
Yeah.
Like we had some speculation, some maybe hearsay, but nothing has been 100% confirmed on the damage that was done, right?
Exactly. No, you're 100% correct. We've heard secondhand testimony by people that weren't talking in a technical way. They weren't conveying that information in a technical way, and we don't know how much of it was, you know, it's hearsay. That's what it comes down to. John McAllister makes a great point here. This is all of this stuff is timed for, not timed, I won't say that. I won't say that this was, you know, someone timed Charlie Kirk's death for a midterm. I don't know that. That would be wild speculation on my part. But what I can see is that there are political opponents on either side that are going to capitalize on this and create as much division to make sure, do whatever they can to win midterms. I think that is very true.
I agree.
Yep. Clinton Sanchez, oh my God, I found this channel a few months ago and I've really enjoyed your fairness and patience. This is my first live and wow, I feel like I'm on 4chan forum.
Stay off of Kiwi Farms, guys.
Mikey was on the phone, made 2 calls as he was leaving. No gurney for Kirk parameter. Mikey was not on the phone. He actually had the phone in his hand when he got shot. I will tell you that they're saying, what TPUS is saying is that when he heard the shot, he covered his ears, and he does make that movement. Like when they were saying that, they showed the video. I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Made 2 calls as he was leaving. No gurney for Kirk. I don't know, folks, I've talked about this. At an event like that, look, where they're going to have an ambulance, is they're going to have an ambulance at large events, sporting events. All right. There is no law, there's no requirement to have an ambulance at a debate. I mean, just the insurance, if you did a risk analysis of that event, I mean, assassinations are not something that you often come up with, you know, with contingency plans for. You just don't, right? The only time that they're an event like that, I would like to see how many other times he did any events if they had an ambulance on standby. VU. And there are probably 10 to 15,000 at that school every single day. Well, we know that there's been school shootings. There's a lot more school shootings than there are assassinations. So the risk of a school shooting is significantly higher than an assassination of one person. That's a fact. That's statistically true. Why don't they have an ambulance at the school when there's 10 or 15,000, but you expect an ambulance to be there when there's only 3 or 4,000? There is no requirement for that. I'm not saying they shouldn't. Should it be SOP? Probably. But it's not weird to me that there wasn't one there. I mean, they weren't expecting Charlie Kirk to get shot. They've done hundreds of events like this. Yeah, he gets death threats, but he's also gotten death threats in the past. The other thing I'll tell you is there were insurance requirements for sure, both from TPUSA standpoint and the school's standpoint. So the insurance says, oh, you're going to have an event. How many people are going to be there? There's going to be 4,000. They're about whatever they came up with. I'm sure they overestimated, probably said 5,000, 6,000. I don't know, whatever number they gave them. So again, they have insurance requirements, and both TPUSA and the school. I guarantee you all those insurance requirements, which are kind of what set the standard for a lot of the stuff, were actually met. We'll find out. Maybe they weren't. Maybe they completely. What we do know is that TPUSA did try to cover the roof and did try to fly a drone, and UVU said that the roof cover confirmation. I played a video of that a couple weeks ago before YouTube put me on a timeout. But TPUSA did release a video stating those things.
Hey, Gary, can I get your opinion on something?
You sure can, buddy. Anything for you.
So I've seen a few other YouTubers talk about this, and that's the choice that his security team made to pick him up and move him to get him to a hospital, as opposed to tending to the wound, calling 911, and having an ambulance come get him. Just wondering what your thoughts are on that.
So again, we teach tactical combat casualty care, all right, or tactical emergency casualty care. There are protocols for this, and the determination, number one, you assess the casualty. All right, the first thing that we're worried about is massive hemorrhaging, and then airway, then respirations, then circulation, then hypothermia. That is what we're concerned about. Nowhere in there. All right, I'm not saying you don't assess the casualty and concern yourself some to spinal injuries and things like that. There is some decision making that you need to go through there. When you are talking about a injury like what we saw with Charlie, where we have massive hemorrhaging and we have internal damage that we don't know about, that is also going to cause additional hemorrhaging, which is the main reason people die. We understand those things. We see the hemorrhaging that we have, and then we know that there's probably going to be additional internal hemorrhaging. You need to get them to the hospital as quickly as possible. And that's one of the things that we get asked about in our courses and our training and everything else. You have to make that determination. Is it better for you to bring them to a hospital, or is it going to be faster to wait for a hospital? I can tell you right now, where I live, we already have this plan in place. Unless there's some extenuating circumstances, because where I live is rural and it's going to take 25, 30 minutes for an ambulance to get here, I am taking my kids or my wife are taking me to the hospital. We are going to self-evacuate, right? I think they made the right call. They probably got to the hospital somewhere around 10 to 12 minutes after that occurred. I don't know that exactly, but it's about a 6 or 7 minute drive. They were there 3 or 4 minutes prior to. That's what I think took place. So I think they made the exact right call. And at the end of the day, none of it makes sense. Ultimately, it doesn't. Look, I think the first time I saw that video, I was like, dude, he's dead. And later on, I heard them saying that he had a pulse. I was like, no, dude. Like, he's gone. They may be able to get a mechanical pulse, whether they hook him up to a machine or but some weird thing is happening where his heart's still beating. He's dead. I've seen that like too many times. I could tell you when the lights go out, and his lights were out immediately. So that's my opinion on that, and that's what is taught. That is a protocol and a best method that we recommend. Like, you got to make the determination. People are going to second guess you. Stop the bleeding as much as I can and get them to a higher level of care. And whatever you think is going to get them to that next higher level of care fastest is what your decision needs to be. And just expect people to question you afterwards.
So the time from when Charlie is hit to the time where they are picking him up to move him to the SUV, time this out. is just under 18 seconds.
Wow.
And I'm referring to the video that you did not that long ago about what you think they might have been doing down there. Is 18 seconds. Do you still think that they're doing that? Is there like, are they trying to stop a bleed, or is there no bleed happening at that point because his heart stopped?
I think they were trying to stop a bleed, for sure. I think it is most likely that they at least got that wound packed and they felt like it was secure. I think you could probably do that in close to 20 seconds or so. If you had one guy pulling out gauze and then getting that gauze inside of that wound, I don't know, because we can't see behind that table. I was presenting an alternative and most likely scenario. That is a very short amount of time, for sure. It's a great question that I don't have the answer to, but I don't question for a second that them moving them, because that's what I would have done. If it was my kid up there, I would not be waiting for an ambulance. I mean, you don't know what's going to happen to an ambulance. Ambulances are on the way. They get into wrecks all the time. They get held up in traffic. You know, there's a lot, like sometimes it takes them, like you might tell them where they're at, maybe, or maybe they can't get to the victim. There's a lot of variables at play there that if I know what's going on and I know the situation, I can take those variables into account and say, hey, you know what? I think I can get them to the hospital faster. So I don't question that part at all. Paramedics refused. So there's not. First of all, I don't know what level of care they were being given. The other thing, I don't know what those EMTs or whatever they were that showed up. I think they probably had some. I believe at least one of those guys was probably an 18 Delta, and or so what that is a Special Forces medic. I guarantee you they had either that level or higher of medical professional on that team. I don't know that. That's speculation. I just know how these personal security details run. There's almost always like a 18 Delta or the equivalent of on those. One of those, I mean, they could have been paramedics for all we know. Now, I also heard people talk about how they refused medical gear. Folks, that bag that guy in the gray hair, I guarantee you is an A bag. I guarantee you that is a fully kitted out trauma kit. I don't know that for sure, and I would have refused that as well, because like, nope, look, we got a bag full of stuff in here. You're either going to give me stuff that I don't know about or don't trust or whatever else. I know what I have. I know how to use this. That's what I'm going with. So I'd have to look at, I know that's been popping up the last couple of days. I haven't looked that much into the whole, now there's new video of them refusing the EMT care or whatever we got going on there. Catherine makes a good point. She says, agreed. Can't we express ideas and have a conversation without the hostility? That's like the point here. I've tried to be very careful about what I say and not try to demonize people and try to give them the benefit of the doubt and not immediately assume what their motives are. I'll put it like that. Busted on Google Trends. I wasn't busted on Google Trends. No one's busted on Google Trends. Google Trends is the most nonsensical, silliest, dumbest thing ever put out. Using Google Trends for any sort of journalistic effort whatsoever is unethical. Using it to convict people or try to tie people to a murder is immoral. I'll just put it like that. I've already covered it. I have a whole video. I made a video about it. I went through, here's a fact. Those searches, you cannot reproduce them. I've never reproduced once. Not one time have I gotten the same result. And I got tons of screenshots using the exact same data, the exact same search parameters. They come up with contradictory, completely different, sometimes similar. I'll tell you that. Sometimes similar within a date range, but it's different every single time. Yeah, I don't know what to tell you about that. So Google Trends is not an investigatory tool. It's not. And it's not good data. Yeah, this is another point that can't be hit enough. Is real people are affected by this. Like if some of the accusations put upon them, the accusations being put upon TPUSA, the accusations put on his, Charlie's wife. I think Charlie would be disgusted by some of these things. And again, it'd be one thing if you had evidence, but you don't. You have wild speculation. That's what you're convicting them of murder with. All right, folks. Well, Bronson, you got anything else to add to this conversation?
Nope. I think you nailed it.
Cool. Let me just make sure. All right, I think I missed one. Good stuff, my guy. Oh, there's Henry Dales himself. What's going on, Henry? Hope you're doing well, buddy. Well, listen, folks, I apologize again. I know it kind of disrupted the whole flow of things, the audio thing. It was weighing on my mind. I was feeling bad about it. And anyways, sorry about the bad audio issues to begin with. We got a lot more stuff coming down the pike. And again, what you're going to hear from us every single time, we're going to do everything we can to be fact-based, to be truthful, to be honest, to kind of approach everything that we report on and talk about with integrity. And that's what it's going to be about. And if you're into that, then come right here to Dangerous Liberty Podcast. That's what we're going to be doing. Listen, Bronson, I really appreciate you coming on. I know it was kind of a last minute thing, so I appreciate that. We need to have you on again sometime that's a little more planned and a little bit more coordinated, but I appreciate you coming on. If you guys haven't done so already, make sure you go follow Bronson. What's your YouTube channel again?
At Rage Bronson.
At Rage Bronson. And then what you got for X?
At Rage Bronson YT.
At Rage Bronson YT. Folks, if you're not following me on X, if you're wondering where I was all this past week, make sure you follow us on X. The links are down in the description as well. So go click on that. We appreciate your support. We appreciate you. Thank you for being great, logical Americans. And until next time, stay armed, stay ready, and we'll talk to you soon.